Um, I don't have a candle. I don't have a cake or a pastry, I guess, or anything. I didn't have time to get one when I was out today, but I did have ice cream tonight with my friends. But fix my hair. I wanted to make a video, right? I wanted to make a YouTube video or something, and I'm kind of tired right now because I had a long day at school, and I got to meet some new friends. I talked to some random people in my class, and I never do that. I get pretty nervous, but I connected with some people. We all hung out, and it was really good. And I think we're gonna travel maybe together, hang out more. But I want to make a video because today, oh my eyes, today marks a year since my car accident in Arkansas. And it's just kind of crazy, right? Because in this very moment, I'm sitting in a cute apartment in Rome with 4 people I've never met before, and I love them, and they're amazing and nice and sweet. But I really just wanted to make a video to kind of talk about what it was like going through that, and maybe what I've learned and where I am now, So it was about, I got up at 7, I think ish, maybe 7:30, and I had finally started kind of working out more consistently, and I decided I was gonna go on a run by myself. I'd done before, and I felt like doing it again and being productive. So, I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I had my phone with me and my big Sony headphones, my blue Sony headphones. And yeah, I left my dorm and I was running on the trails, and it's kind of like connected to the roads as well, the greenway is. And I finally, there's a part you go over like a bridge and you hit a traffic light. It's a giant traffic light for pedestrians because across the street there's a really fun little park, and it had a skateboarding ramp, and just it was very vast, And so I decided, like I had done so many times before, I was gonna cross the street. So I pressed the button. It kind of taking a long time, but I was just kind of jogging in place. Wasn't super fatigued quite yet. I looked to my right. Once the light said it was time to go, everyone was stopped. I looked forward, and then I took 2 steps. I remember it so clearly, which is the weird part about this. Just to the left and the right. And the next thing I know, I didn't feel it, but it's like the air, maybe not the air, but where I was in that moment just stopped. It was like time stopped for a minute. And then when it started again, I quickly rose up from the ground. I started walking, dizzy. I could see the cars on the other side of the road, but everything was so hazy, even though I didn't really know at the time. And I'm looking around, and then a guy comes out of a green car, and he grabs me by the shoulders, and I can tell it's a man, not a young one at that, and he starts shaking me, and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I go, "I don't know." Then he goes, "You need to sit down." And so he kind of sits me on the concrete, and I wait, and I'm just staring at my hands. I'm like, I don't know what's happening right now. Oh, I forgot this too. But after when I stood up, when I looked at the guy, I looked at the windshield. There's just 2 massive crater-like cracks. One was bigger than the other, which is where my head and my elbow hit the windshield of the green Ford Fusion that hit me at 40 miles per hour. That morning, it was like 8:30 exactly, ish. It all happened in 3 minutes. First minute was the hit, and then 2 minutes before the ambulances came, which they didn't, it wasn't a hit and run, so they were good people. I don't have any sort of grudge towards them at all, but I just remember I look down the street and I see the ambulances coming, and they pull on the side of the road really fast, and they say, "We have to take you to the hospital." And I just go, "Okay," and they put me on a stretcher. And I was so out of it, I just, like, I go, like, just me being stubborn. I'm, like, laying on a stretcher, they put a neck brace on me, and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna take you to a hospital," like, telling me again. And I go, "I can walk back to my house, I feel fine," you know? And then they go, "Can we give you," I think it was fentanyl. It was a very, like, strong drug. I think it was fentanyl. They're like, "We're gonna give you fentanyl," or actually, I take that back. I think they have to ask you for permission to give you fentanyl. They're like, "Do you want fentanyl?" I go, "Isn't that drug bad for you?" "No, I don't want fentanyl," which I should have taken it, but your girl's stubborn, so. And they just looked at me like, and then I took a selfie, which is how I know what time everything happened. And then I remember a paramedic or a fireman, I think it was a paramedic, not a fireman. He was sitting on my right side in the ambulance, and they were starting to shut the doors, and they didn't drive yet, but he goes, "Who do you want to call?" And I knew that my mom would freak out, so I said I would, like, I want to call my dad. He won't freak out. He'll understand and know what to do. And I just remember the paramedic answering the phone for me and then handing it to me, and I just, like, start crying because I felt so guilty for what happened, and I didn't want to worry my parents, and I felt so bad. And I just remember, like, calling my dad and, like, just sobbing and being like, "I'm so sorry, Dad, like, I promise I'm okay, like, I'm so sorry." And he just was super calm and comfortable, and he was like, "It's okay, everything's gonna be okay, we're gonna come up there." And the next thing I know, I was conscious, but I was kind of in and out of reality. Just kind of like, I remember, like, I'd look out the window, look at the paramedics, look at the metal in the vehicle, look at my body, all of it. And then we got to the hospital, and I remember looking out because I realized where I was. I was like, going through the emergency doors, right? And they put me in a room very close to the emergency doors, and I was there. And this is where things get kind of crazy from here, because that's a lot of context to my big car accident that happened, right? But funnily enough, there's just a lot of spiritual context to all of this. It's freshman year of college, and in August, or I guess when I got to Arkansas, I was very, I wouldn't say I'm a sheltered, I don't know, other people would say I'm sheltered, but I think that I was a super vulnerable kid because I was not mature. I just wanted to, I thought I was mature. I thought I was way smarter, It's a classic situation. I thought I was way smarter than I actually was. But I just remember, like, I got to school, and, like, I just remember being like, you know what? I was watched for so many years by so many people that knew me in high school, and I'm throwing that all away. I just want to drink and I want to do whatever I want. I want to do what stupid college kids do because I can do it without feeling some weird guilt. Right? Well, that's not how it works. But yeah, all throughout fall semester, I was just like getting drunk every weekend, running around the streets, and I didn't do drugs or anything, but I just get blasted. And then every single time, I would just be so disgusting and weird and crude and just foul, you know? And I would just drink to let it all go and just do what I wanted to do. And every time, I think every night that I come back, I just cry. Well, actually not at night, I cry in the mornings. I just ask God for forgiveness, you know, or I just be like, Lord, like, I don't know who I am. I'm so sorry. Like, where are you? You know, like I was just so lost, and the cycle would continue. I would keep getting drunk and then waking up and be like, who am I? Like, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing, but I know I don't want to stop. And I had a real problem. And then I sorry, I zoned out. I remember I came home and I think, oh, sorry, I remember this too. I was getting drunk in like serious situations. Sorry, I meant to say that. But I remember I came home, I got drunk another time, and at that point, it was like, really close to Christmas time. Like, you know, it's just like looking back on it, I'm like, that's the time you're supposed to be focusing on the joy and the gift of Christmas and what it means to celebrate Christmas and to lean into that tradition. But it's not only tradition, it's the birth of like our Savior of the world, you know? And I just didn't care. I could care less. I was there for presents, which is kind of cringe, but there to get gifts and just continue on, go back to school. But I remember I was walking around with such a guilt and such a just hatred of myself. And it wasn't something that depressed me completely, but it's something that made me feel so lost. And I remember, I think it was like a couple days before I went back to school, I was talking to my old Bible teacher. I love the guy. And I just kind of told him everything I've been doing because I didn't know who else to talk to. I didn't want to talk to my parents because I knew they would be disappointed. And you know, when you're a kid, like I could say it now, you don't want to be lectured by your parents because you think you know everything. But I told him I had been drinking. He kind of just walked me through, like, you know, like the context of like people drinking in the Bible, like what it's celebrated for. And he was explaining to me kind of like, you know, Jesus, he turned water into wine. You know, it was like his first miracle, and drinking wine is sacred. Like, it's supposed to be celebrated, so you should not, like, you're kind of going against something that's really special. And that's when it kind of snapped me back into reality. Because I was like, oh, like, yeah, not only, like, yes, it's a sin to get drunk and whatnot, but like, it's offending Jesus, you know? I feel like sometimes when we sin, we know that we're not supposed to do it, but we don't think of it like offending someone or a presence, like the Holy Spirit, you know, or stuff like that. So that got me. I was like, oh, it wasn't just like a weird guilt anymore. It was like a conviction. And then he just kind of told me, like, you got so much life to live. Like, you can't be wasting time on this. And I realized how dark this path was that I was headed on and where it could lead. And so after I left, I just remember being like, I don't want to do anymore. Like all of that pressure to feel like I needed to, it was gone, or the desire. And so I went back to school, and I felt like I had a whole new outlook on life, right? And then on Tuesday, the second day of my classes for spring semester, got hit by a car at 40 miles per hour, right? Okay, so now that we're all caught up, this is where the blessings start, right? Because that period of my life, and I'll get more into this later, it was just full of just self-inflicting pain and just regret and guilt. You know, it was not right. So I'm trying to whisper because my roommates are on the phone and I don't want to be noisy. But crack my neck too. Okay. Okay, I'm in the hospital, right? And it was so interesting because a couple of days before that, my aunt on my mom's side of the family, like extended aunt, not even like my mom's sister, like my mom's cousin, which I guess I would consider her more of an aunt at this point, but you could say cousin, something like that. No, I don't really know, but see, extended family. But a couple days before that, her daughter Katie was moving out because she went to Arkansas, but actually she studied abroad and she went to Australia and Rome, so she's been here before. But they were moving her out of her apartment, and I wanted some of their stuff. And long story short, the storage unit was new, and we couldn't figure out the codes. Like I got to spend some time with her, and they were still in town, the whole shebang, right? Well, when the accident happened, like they're never in town. Like since Katie was older, like being senior or junior. And so my parents called her and they're like, can you please go to the hospital and like just see Camden, make sure she's okay. And so she came, and Katie came up at one point, and they were so sweet to me. They made sure I was okay. They advocated for me whenever there was doctors and policemen, and I would throw up because of just when you're impacted that much, like it just, your system is like in shock, you know, so you're throwing up. And I just like, that's just not a coincidence, you know? They're never up there. They were there for me in like the darkest moment of my life, or the scariest. And they took care of me, and they comforted me, and they just kept me okay. And they would use their phones to call my family so I could call back, the whole thing, right? And so they, sorry if I'm slow, by the way, I'm trying to recall everything. Let me think. Oh, so at that point in time, yeah, I just really talked to doctors and policemen. It wasn't terrible. And then I remember I would like go to sleep. I was in and out of sleep. I'd wake up and I'd throw up and then I'd go back to sleep. Wake up, throw up, go back to sleep. In and out, in and out. And then I remember a couple hours later, my mom showed up, and she wasn't necessarily, I don't remember her being scared. My mom and dad, they were very strong people. She was more just like, I'm so happy to see you. I sped up here. I swear, I think she said she went like 100 for 6 hours. I'm like, how many gas like tanks did that take? You know? So she was there for me. And then my dad showed up eventually. And then my sister, actually, she drove up after work and came up there, and her drive is 8 hours. So she drove up, and that was good seeing her. We made so many jokes, you know. They were there for me, and like, man, I had the whole fit. I had the IV, which I'm scared of needles, but I was so like just dead, basically. Like, I didn't even feel it. I had the scrubs on, my hair was a mess, no shower, just, which I know, like, it's not important, but just that's how it was. I had to take so many x-rays to scan my head and my body to make sure I didn't break anything, which we'll get into that more in a second. But yeah, my whole family was there, and I got moved to another room so we could spend the night at the hospital. But before all of that, I remember the weird thing was that whenever my parents came, right, which I was asleep at that time, I think one of the doctors came to talk to my mom and dad, and they said, like, hey, like, the lady was like taken aback, like she looked shocked. Like, I think from what I remember my parents saying, there's like tears in her eyes, and she was like, your daughter, the condition she's in right now, how her face looks, her body, she should look totally different. Like, she should look disfigured, because I think my parents didn't see the video unless they, not lied, but like didn't want me to know they saw what happened. But she was like, I saw it, and your daughter is literally like a walking miracle. Like, I don't even know how she's alive right now, you know? She was just like in tears, just so like not in awe, but just like, oh my goodness. And my parents were like, oh, they didn't even know what to think about that, you know? Everything was happening at once, but like, the lady was basically saying like, I should have died, right? And my parents were like, oh. So that was crazy. But right, I go to another hospital floor, test after test, whatnot. And I remember my priest and another guy from my church named John, both their names are John, they actually came to the hospital and they checked in on me. They brought my family supplies, which was so sweet because I love my church in Arkansas. I love you, St. Gabriel's. It's amazing. It's a little Anglican church. But they came and they just prayed over me, and my priest actually brought oil to anoint me, you know, and bless me during that time. And I just remember that it was oil from Fort Worth too, so I felt like my homeland. But I didn't know that people did that, or I've never had that done to me before, and I just felt like so watched and taken care of, right? During that crazy time of desperation, I felt okay. And so that was, I think, at like 12 a.m., you know. And my parents, I don't think they slept a wink, but I did, because I was so exhausted. And next day comes, I just remember being like, I have to get out of this hospital. Like, I don't know what got into me, but I was like, I can't stay here another night. Like, I have to leave. Like, I wanted out of there. I don't remember the reasoning, but I did not want to stay in there another night. So the doctors, they checked me, you know, they said, your tests are good. Like, the only thing you had was a minor brain bleed. And I don't know if I don't think my skull fractured. I mean, obviously I think they would have to fix that or something. No, but like I still can feel a bump on the back of my head from where it happened. Like, it's very evident to me. It's on this side from where I impacted. But they're like, yeah, you had a little brain bleed, and lots of bruising. Like, I have pictures, lots of bruising. And they were like, okay, if we can test if you can walk, or do anything speech, whatever. We had to do a test, then you can leave. And I did pretty dang good at them. Like, considering, like, I was walking around the hospital, it was fine, you know? And they were like, okay, you're out, you know? So I got admitted. I think that's discharged. Sorry, I'm very tired if you can't tell. I'm gonna say discharged from the hospital. Yeah. And so we got a hotel, and I just remember, like, I sat there, you know, first time I got to take a shower. It felt so good. And people sent me cards and stuffed animals. It's very sweet. I think that's when I got Orlando, my little Warmy the snowman. It really comforted me. And actually my 4 friends, oh no, I missed such an important detail. 2 of my friends, my very close friends, they actually came and saw me before my mom and dad got there. Wait, no, 3. It was 3. See, I was a little in and out. I'm gonna say 3. 3 of my friends actually came to the hospital and saw me the day before, and they were just so sweet to show up, you know, like, it's the second day of school, and I know they care about me, obviously, but it's just like, it really means a lot that they came and they checked in on me. But, sorry, the next day, 4 of my friends came, right? They were like, I think I remember them looking like, hey, and I was just laying in bed like, what's up? Because, like, I'm just like, I don't know what to say. I'd rather make a joke out of the situation. But no, like, slowly but surely I could walk around the hotel room, you know, and, like, that's crazy. I shouldn't be able to walk. I should be in a wheelchair. No, I could walk slowly. Showed my bruises, all the things. They brought me cards, very, like, kind cards. It was just very heartwarming. And they also saw me after we left that hotel room. I think my dad and my sister left, and it was just me and my mom in an Airbnb on Dixon Street. If you're from Arkansas, you know. We're on Dixon, and that's when, like, more, I guess the aftermath of the car wreck was really starting to take a toll on me. What I was saying earlier is, like, my friends would come and check in on me because it was, like, pretty rough. Like, it was bad, and they saw how bad it was. But I just, looking back on it, like, there were so many, like, little spiritual moments, and just, like, yeah. Let me just talk. So let's go to my chair too. So we got to the Airbnb, and I think for the first 2 days, like, I mean, oh my gosh, I couldn't sleep for like 2 weeks because I don't even know if it was pain, but more of just, like, I was wide awake. Like, I would just flip around my bed. I just flip and flip, like, oh wait, maybe it was probably pain, duh. Just, like, messing off, flipping around, wide awake. It's just crazy. But I remember that 3rd day of post-accident. For one, I got my period, not to be gross or, like, that open, but got my period. And that was hard because, like, when you're cramping and your whole body is in shock, it's not the funnest, but, you know, we got through it and it turned out to be fine. But, like, that was hurting my entire body. My head was still really tender from where I hit the car. I had bruises, like, all over here and on my thighs and, like, the back of my leg. I looked rough and I felt rough. And I just remember that 3rd day, I think I went up to go, like, walk across the room. I was like, oh, my tailbone kind of hurts. That's new. Well, for the next couple of days, I couldn't walk, I feel like 20 feet. Maybe, no, I'm gonna say 10. Like, the Airbnb was is spacious, but not super large. I couldn't get up from the couch to walk to the kitchen because I would get out of breath. I would have to stop and kneel, and I would just shake because I was in pain. And I can't even imagine the pain really anymore because it was so bad. It's like nothing I've ever felt before, but it hurt. And like, I couldn't even sit sometimes in certain ways because it hurt so bad. And I remember every morning, because I usually wake up super early, I'd go talk to my mom and my grandma. Oh, because my grandma came at one point, because I love my Mimi, and she came to be there for my mom and me, or mostly my mom, during that time. And I just remember I would talk to them, and I'd go to the bathroom, and I would just sit in there in the mornings, and I would just cry, and I would just sob, and I would just cry, because I was in so much pain. And it was so weird. I had so much emotional whiplash. I would cry and pray, and then afterwards I'd feel such intense joy, and I felt such a vigor for life I hadn't had before, because like I said before, I was drinking and being an idiot. But after I would cry and just shout out to God, I just felt like I have to keep going. Like, I can't let this take over me. And so I would do that like every morning for a couple of days, and eventually I got out. Like, I would walk around the streets maybe 4 days after, but I would have to sit in stores. I was trying to distract myself, but I would have to sit in stores and just take a breath. And I also couldn't eat anything. Everything I would only eat like a quarter of, or not even that. And then I'd be like, I have no appetite. I don't want to eat. I just don't even want anything, but there's a lot of like parts to the story, but during that time, the Airbnb, I think it was like 2 weeks, maybe. Oh, it was 2 weeks in the Airbnb, but, the week, oh no, what was it? Oh, I went back to school a week later. Crazy, but just want to put that out there. But that's a miracle in of itself. But I remember the time in that Airbnb was so weird, because I forgot about this. I'm remembering stuff. I couldn't hear my left ear because I think that when I hit on impact, I was wearing chunky headphones. I think they pushed into my ear or on the side of my head, and it just like, and I think that something about the sound, I don't know, but my hearing, like, I could not hear out of this ear, and there was ringing really bad, and it would hurt. Yeah, I was in all sorts of weird pains, but at least no broken bones. But this is like just so beautiful to me. It's just like, that time was literally the worst pain I've ever experienced in my entire life, right? For multiple reasons, as I've listed. But during that time, I just slowed down. I mean, I was kind of borderline paralyzed, and I had such a strange peace about me during some moments, right? Because I just the only thing I could do, because I couldn't move, I couldn't walk, I couldn't really move my legs that much, I couldn't go anywhere, I just had to sit. I couldn't get on my phone because it gave me headaches and it hurt my eyes. Actually gave me migraines. Couldn't do anything. I just had to sit. And when I sat, is when I started to find Jesus. And, you know, like, I just remember, like, one night, oh, it's gonna make me tear up, I just was sitting in my bed. I was thinking about God. I think it was the first time I got to the Airbnb, and I was just like, God loved me so much that despite all my sin prior and fall semester and running from him, like, I never really experienced God's love before, like, or understood it more of. I'd experienced it many times. I didn't understand it until then, that a God would love me so much that he would give me another chance at life, both spiritually and physically on this earth, to let me walk and breathe and live again. And that is the moment where I found God for the first time, truly. He was just everywhere in my story. I mean, people like were texting my mom and reaching out and praying and calling, and they even made a video for me at school that was like, we hope you get better. And it was so sweet. It had like a bunch of students, a bunch of my friends that were younger than me, not in college yet. And there's just so many people that would like send us supplies, because it's expensive, you know, to live in an Airbnb for that time of living. And just the love of God and the community that it brings was all around me. It surrounded me. It made me feel at peace when I felt so I just felt so much despair. And I just remember one night I was like, a God would love me so much that he saved me from what should have been a tragedy. And that's where I feel like my real journey with Christ started. After that, of course, there's a lot of other things that happened. You know, like I said, I went back to school. I think I had a cane, but I don't know if I ever used it in public. It might have just been around the house. I can't remember because it was that bad. But I just remember like how beautiful it was that when I was reduced to nothing, when I couldn't move, when I couldn't sleep, when I couldn't do anything I wanted to do, genuinely, that was like the happiest I had been in my life. I mean, of course, like, obviously you're probably like, what? But like physically and emotionally, I was unhappy. But spiritually, I finally understood things I just saw so clearly when I had nothing else to distract me, you know? And yeah, sometimes, like, I know I wasn't supposed to be on my phone, but I'd watch like a TV episode every single day because I did a lot of magazine reading and book reading. But then those were fun and all. Those were great. But nothing was like at nighttime before I go to bed, and I'd read a chapter of scripture. I think that's when I started Proverbs, because They were easy to read at night when I just needed some spouts of wisdom. And of joy, and peace and love. And I would read a chapter of Proverbs every night. I just remember before I go to bed, just talk to God and be like, wow, like, I see you for who you are finally, and not just the version of you I had in my head. I just remember, like, I no longer wanted to be, well, actually, it wasn't that. Those moments made me realize how fake and prideful I was about my faith. It wasn't really faith, like, yes, I cared about learning more about Jesus, and I cared about having knowledge of him, but I never actually knew him. I never actually knew God as a friend, and as my father, as an advocate, as a provider, as the Savior, and what it means to be saved by the Savior. And, there's still times now when I realize more things, but I just feel like in those moments of desperation, I truly felt like I was living, because I saw God, and not in a physical way. I would be gone, but I saw God for who he really was, and not what I had made him in my mind as some cruel dad or a letdown, or someone who was awesome but was just kind of there. No, like, good night. It was like, I recognized that this relationship that me and Jesus had was something that was unique, and something that I had been searching for my whole life, and that I had pursued but hadn't actually understood and grasped. And I remember even those months after, I was so happy. I had to move dorms, my dorm room, because I couldn't walk up the stairs in case of emergency, because sometimes elevators broke in Yoakum. I was on the 6th floor. So they moved me to the 3rd, because they were like, okay, not as many stairs. And I said, all right. So I moved to a dorm room where I was all alone. I had no one in there with me. It was me, myself, and I. And my mom and dad had to go back home. They had to work. And so I virtually only had my friends, which is fine. But, after something traumatic like that, you kind of want your parents to be with you in a new room, new hallway, new set of everything, right? And despite all that uncertainty, I just thrived in my faith. Like, every morning I would wake up, I'd sit on the floor, and I would stand. I put on my headphones, the same headphones. I listen to praise music. I would praise God. Then I would pray. I just talked to God. We just had the sweetest conversations of just like me getting to know him more personally. Obviously, like, God's not going like, oh, my favorite color is this, or my favorite animal is that, but it felt so intimate, and I felt a presence or something here that I'd never felt before, right? And so I knew that this kind of faith was different, and I knew it was different because it wasn't, I know that, like, that feeling I had wasn't something I made up, like some sort of church camp high, because it was sustainable. I felt this way for months because I didn't really do much else. I mean, I would still hang out with my friends, but like, the mornings were for him and the nights were for him, for the Lord. The mornings, like I said, praise, I pray, and then I read a little bit of my Bible, which was so lovely. And I just felt so content. I felt another type of joy and happiness going to school, right? So then, right, I remember, I think it was maybe a couple of days after the accident, I was like, I really need a Christian group to be a part of because this is hard. And I really need to be surrounded by Christian positivity and just, support right now. That just wasn't just my church, because I love my church, but I needed a little more support in close proximity, like being on campus. And so I go on HogSync, our little like database, and I find a group called Delight. It's a Christian women's group, and I remember being like, I need to try something new, I might as well go. And I went, and I fell in love. I met so many kind girls, the atmosphere was great, and I then spent the rest of my semester there, and last semester, and more semesters to come. And I remember at one point, they opened the leader applications for the next semester. I just remember something in my heart stirring, being like, I need to do this, I knew that was the Lord pushing me in that direction. The next semester, I became the worship leader. Like, yes, the car accident was horrible. Yes, everything was miserable, but so many doors were open, and the Lord was right there the entire time. The Lord was never gone or unwavering. He was always there. I was just too blind to see him in my own pridefulness and just poor nature. And I just really did want to celebrate today and make this video, because I want to make sure, I'm going to have to cut this together now because I didn't know it would pause, whatever. But I want to make this video, or videos now, because I just wasn't living until I came to God truly. And, I will tell you too, like, everything was fine dandy, but, time passed and I wasn't perfect. I've done so many things since then that I am not proud of, that I regret, and definitely did go against the Lord. But I'm not so alone anymore. And all of those things that I desired before, like drinking and doing stupid stuff, it lost its appeal. And I knew that was the power of God, because before it felt so strong, but now I know that when I'm close to God, all those things are gross, they're not okay. And it's not because I'm telling myself that, or I feel like I have a pressure. It's because it's hurting my father in our relationship. It's hurting my friend in our relationship. And I love them too much, and they love me too much. The Lord loves me too much to want me to hurt myself by doing bad things. And I love the Lord so much that I don't want to offend him, Like, it's not just rules anymore. Like, yeah, they're like things to follow, but it wasn't like a punishment sort of task. It felt more like, no, I must do this because it's for people I love, and just like, I just feel like I'm in a totally different lane after that day of craziness and pain, because I just wasn't living before. I was running. Like, I can think back on so many times in my life where I would run to social media, I would run to friends, I would run to I don't even know. I guess maybe, being busy, being perfect, in my eyes of being perfect. And just after the accident, it all just washed away. It was all futile, and nothing fulfilled me anymore. And that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Like, even being in Rome, a lot of things have kind of happened in my life. Just like during Thanksgiving, just like my dog Rosie passed, and just Thanksgiving break was kind of heavy on my heart, just some things. And I felt kind of distant from God. Like, even now I've been struggling, but I'm just so thankful, because whenever I feel that way now, I don't feel like I have to run from him anymore, or from the rules to feel or do my own thing, or what was right in my mind. It was like, I can come back to God, and he loves me, and he loves me enough to let me come back again and again. Like, the forgiveness that God gives is just so opposite of what we want to do, but it's so powerful, and it saves lives, and is truly the mark of a living and just merciful Father who loves you. That day made me see God in a whole new light, and it made me want to tell others about God, and about how, like, it's like the first time in my life I had really wanted to share Christ. It's not because of the story I had. That was not it at all, even though, like, the story I had was an important part of everything, I did love to share how God moved in my life, but it wasn't just because I wanted to yap about a story. It was because this love that I had experienced was so opposite the love that I had been taught, or that I had perceived to be what the love of God was like. It was so much more powerful, so much stronger, so much more intimate than I thought. And so, even though I struggle now, and I will struggle for the rest of my life because of my nature, my sin nature, I have some sort of strange comfort, because I know I can come back to God no matter what, even when I don't feel like I can. And that is such a powerful, beautiful, glorious message, right? I'm just so thankful for God. I'm so thankful that he loved me enough to save me from my trials, to put people in my life and surround me in a community that I grew up in, that loved me and cared for me. And just, he has been there at every moment. Even now when I struggle, I know to come back and rest in the scriptures and communicate with him through prayer, and connect and listen to praise his name with music, because he deserves it. And so, yeah. And there's so many other things I learned too, but that might have to be another video if I make one, because there's a lot of little lessons I learned during that time. But I just can't believe it's been a year, and the dichotomy between years is crazy. Being like 1 year, I get hit by a car, I'm hospitalized, to the next year, I'm sitting in Rome. And I've seen so many cool things, I love it. So, one more yawn before I go to bed. My eyes are red. But, that's kind of the car crash story, and all of the details. I probably missed a couple, but I'm just so happy to have another chance at living, and just, actually, yeah, that's great, but scratch that. Even more than that, just getting to experience God in the fullness of his love, and experiencing life, I guess, in a new lens, and having that lens be something that is with me forever, and being so just blessed by the insight the Lord gave me, the wisdom the Lord gave me, to save me. Oh my God. Sorry. From my old ways, or wanting to go back to my old ways, really, and my old habits. God has been here. He is so good, and He loves me despite all of my disgusting sin, and He loves all of you. And I hope that if anyone is watching this, that they know that, and that the Lord is clearly so good, and that even if you feel like He's not there or real or working or anything, that He probably is, you're not seeing clearly. And I just say a prayer that everyone will get to experience the Lord like I did. Okay, I love you all, and I pray that y'all have a fantastic week. Bye.